Good evening and welcome to Know Your Rights. This is the show where you hear directly from lawyers who break down the law and explain the rights of citizens on common legal issues that confront Belizeans on a regular basis. Tonight, we will be discussing domestic violence. Whether you have been directly affected by domestic violence or know someone who has, it is crucial to know what measures are in place to protect you or a loved one. Joining us to give insight on this important topic is Ms. Natalia Bevans, attorney at law and magistrate. Good evening and welcome, Ms. Natalia.
Good evening. It's good to be here.
Thank you for coming and discussing such a heavy topic. And just a while ago, we were having a lot of discussions before this about the entire crime situation, and it's hard to begin to speak about one without trickling into the other.
Definitely.
But in this episode, we really want to focus on domestic violence. So can you first identify for us what is considered domestic violence under the law?
Okay, domestic violence is any type of violence that relates to physical, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, threats, sexual abuse, financial abuse, and all of these types of physical abuse relates to any type of crime: harm, assault, bodily harm, rape, marital rape, any offenses that you can find under the criminal code.
Okay. It does not necessarily have to be between man and wife, does it?
No, it doesn't. When you're looking at the domestic setting, it has to do with family, in a family setting.
Okay.
So it relates to husband, wives, boyfriend, girlfriend, intimate relationship between a man and a woman. It can be, an application can be made on behalf of a family member, a disabled family member, somebody that is dependent on you, maybe you're an elderly person who is dependent on you. It can be made on behalf of a child. So it's confined to the family domestic setting. Domestic setting as it relates to family.
Okay, so let's start with an adult in the family. If an adult feels that he or she is being domestically abused, how would you go about making a complaint? What is the procedure?
Okay, you can look at it from two perspectives. You can look at it on the criminal side.
Okay.
Let's say I don't want to call them victim. It's the difference between victim and survivor.
Okay.
The perpetrator may use a kind of violence against the person. I'll say person.
The person.
I don't like the word victim at all. Let's say it results in a wounding.
Okay.
The beating results in a wounding. Then the person, the complainant, have an application that they can make for a protection order. That's the civil side. Or they can ask the police to charge the perpetrator for the wounding or the harm.
Okay. Okay.
So there's two routes the person can go. Either criminally, that the person can be charged, and they can go to the court for a protection order to stop the violence.
Okay. Just now you breaks when you are saying the person, the victim, the survivor, and you try sneaking that there's a difference. Tell me about it in terms.
There are two schools of thoughts when it comes to victim and when it comes to survivor. Whenever you use the word victim, it denotes that the person is still experiencing the domestic violence. They're still in that abusive setting.
Okay.
When you look at the word survivor, the person has left, the person has survived the abusive relationship. So I choose the word survivor because it's celebratory of having overcome this abusive relationship and you've gotten out of it.
Okay, I prefer the word survivor too.
Yeah,
I'm glad you clear it up. So, but Is it necessary for you to go through law enforcement, such as the police? Are there agencies that you can contact here in Belize to assist you or to help you make the transition from this victim to survivor?
There is, initially, a lot of people choose to go to the police. And that's because a lot of people are not aware of the different agencies that they can obtain assistance, help, support. Basically, for most, the police will normally guide the person to the family court. The other agency is the Women's Department. They would normally assist the person in either bringing the person to court, or if there is a need where the person's life has been threatened, they will send that person to Haven House. So Haven House is an alternative, it's a facility that supports the women living, they can bring the children in this safe place. I believe it's up to 3 months where the assistance is given and the support is given. That is done through the Women's Department. The Women's Department officers also come to the court and assist them in making their application.
And this is sorry to break it, but this is almost immediate. As soon as they're taken out of the situation, as soon as either the police or Women's Department realize they're in a position to be harmed,
or in danger,
the parent as well as any dependents and so taken.
They will leave and go to Haven House. The thing though is that when the women are at Haven House, during that time, if they're really battered, if they're really bruised, many of them don't want to come to court in that bruised condition. And that is when the women from Women's Department will come and make an application on their behalf, and they can do that under the legislation.
So it's interesting because I want to speak a little bit on intervention. With all the crime and all the events happening or coming across in the media, especially recently within a family unit, we keep stressing this idea that it's going to take more than the police. It's going to take the involvement of the community. But how much legally can the community intervene? For instance, I hear my neighbor. If you live where I live, I could hear all of my neighbor, front and back. I hear my neighbor in this situation. I know she's in this. Can I go and make a claim on her behalf? Can I go so far?
The Act doesn't envisage that a stranger do that. But it does provide for a police officer to do so. So if you are a neighbor and you hear something happening, the police have these 800 numbers. You can call and you can say, well, I'm at this address and this is what is happening and I need for you to come. And I encourage people to do that because there are many instances where a lot of, I have to say victims this time because they're still in the domestic violence situation.
Still in the situation,
They're either afraid to come forward for whatever reason or another. And I would like to see more police officers take the initiative and make an application on behalf of that particular person because they can do that under the law. They can.
I know. Yes. That's interesting. And we will take one short break and then we'll be right back to continue our discussion on domestic violence. Welcome back to Know Your Rights. I am Khadija Usher, and our guest tonight is attorney Natalia Bevans, and we are discussing domestic violence and why it is important to be aware of what preventative measures are in place to help and protect victims. So just before the break, we spoke on police intervention, but it's a touchy topic because I would imagine a lot of victims right now would want to know how much confidence you think they can have in the police department when they go to the police department, that they want to take what I'm saying seriously, especially if it is something that is, it's a volatile house, it's recurring, they always have to call, you know, how seriously, what's the confidence we can have in the system?
I don't believe that a lot of women who have reported domestic violence have a lot of confidence in the police department. And I say that because we have had cases where women have received interim protection order and there is an incident after the order has been granted, given, and if the respondent wasn't served, they will say, well, I have a protection order, and the police would do nothing. And you have instances where the police, they were told, the police would say, well, they're gonna get back together anyway, so that's just a domestic case, so we're not going to deal with it. And that is the reason why we have the amendment in the legislation. The difficulty, though, is that the police are mandated. It's mandatory that they intervene when there is a domestic violence incident. But it's not mandatory for them to arrest.
Really?
It's discretionary.
Although
they can arrest without a warrant. Without a warrant, they can. They may arrest without a warrant if they see that situation is volatile and they need to quell that situation. It's discretionary. A police officer may arrest without warrant. But it's mandatory that they intervene. The difficulty, though, is when they do intervene and they are in that setting where the domestic violence is existing. The situation is volatile. They must intervene. But when it comes to arrest without a warrant, they have a discretion not to arrest. Or if they do arrest, they have to file a report. And the report must be sent to the magistrate court in the district or in the family court. We don't get those reports. So I don't know what is happening in that area. We don't get those reports at all. So I think there is a disconnect when it comes to police being serious in dealing with this being relating to domestic violence. Too many people are coming to the court and saying, the police just send me to the court. The police just send me here and I don't know what to do. And you're talking about incidents where there is a criminal offense committed at that time. There is an assault, there is a harm, there is a wounding. And the police would send them to the family court without giving the person the opportunity to charge. What about charging the person?
So the arrest is not mandatory?
The arrest is not mandatory.
And you touched on the protection order. I just want you to define what is the protection order, because we hadn't had an opportunity to really explain the whole concept of the protection order as yet.
You mean the protection order as it relates to how you go about getting it?
Getting it and what good does it serve to you as somebody who has reported the case, a survivor?
The protection order is basically a piece of paper saying you're not to interfere with this person, you're not to go around this person, you're not to do any kind of harm, any type of physical abuse, verbal abuse, whatever abuse that was proven in the court, you're not supposed to do that. So basically it's a piece of paper, for all intents and purposes, will scold the respondent and say, you're not to do this. In a nutshell, that's basically what it means. And we have had a lot of applicants come before the court where there is a harm, where there is an assault, where there is a wounding, an aggravated assault. And they will say, I don't want to press charge,
Yes.
but I want this piece of paper.
Okay, okay.
When the crime has been committed and you have that in your hand, but you don't want to charge that person. So we are at loss as to the complainant understanding what is happening.
Okay.
And I don't think they understand. I think they are putting greater weight on being and obtaining a protection order than levying a charge for the harm or the assault or the wounding.
But could this have something to do maybe with, once again, I come back to the confidence now in the court system, because how are the conviction rates looking? Are survivors making it through these cases? Are the persons who are perpetrating these crimes being served justice, as we would say?
For me, as a magistrate at the family court, I cannot answer the question as it relates to the harm or injury that is done before the protection order was issued, because that's a matter for the magistrate court. But when it comes to further violence after the order has been given, those are the cases we deal with, which are called the breaches for protection order.
Okay, okay.
And in the majority of cases, there has been conviction.
Okay.
There has been conviction. There's a lot of conviction for breaches of protection order.
That's interesting. Does the law, and we're speaking now, you've reached the courts, you've reached the system. Does the law make any provisions in terms of, you spoke of the condition that you find survivors in, facing your assailant in the courtroom? And that's why I specifically chose the words earlier saying, do they make it through a case? Because they're vulnerable. You have to see this person. Are there provisions in the law for that? All these things survivors think about before they got to the court.
That was one of the things we were looking at when we were looking at the child-friendly court as it relates not only to child abuse cases, but vulnerable witness.
Okay.
To provide for screens, to provide for evidence that can be given, videotape, where the person don't have to be in the courtroom.
Okay.
So those are provisions already in place. In several instances, I find that the victim would want to be heard. They want their day of they want their day of justice. They want to talk. They want it to be known that this person did this to me.
Okay.
And in all of the cases that I dealt with for breach, yes, they have been traumatized, but they stand there in front of their accusers, and it's like they're saying, no more. This is my day when I point you out for doing this to me. And although they're emotional and they're crying, it is like, it's therapeutic for them to face and confront this person that was doing this series of this chronic abuse that they have been enduring for so long. It is like, I have my day in court when I'm facing you and I'm saying to you, no more. So what I'm seeing in the court is that for me, what I'm seeing is, for them, is therapeutic.
It's quite the opposite from what we're
From what I experienced. From what I experienced. Yes, some of them, when they're relating the incident, and they're very emotional, but it's not something. It doesn't come from a place of fear. It comes from a place of. I am a survivor, and I made it out, and you did this to me, and I want you to admit that you did this to me. So for me, I see it as yes, it's confrontational to some extent, but it's it's like a victory for them
Yeah.
in getting that opportunity to
Yeah.
face that person and say no more.
Yes, I think if there is nothing that, if there's nothing else that anybody takes from this program right now, it should be that differentiation you made early on between victim and survivor, and you made it not at the point for survivor when after all the court, after all the trial, just you made the differentiation right at that point of saying no more and getting out. But we need to take one more short break, and then we'll be right back to continue our discussion on domestic violence. Welcome back to Know Your Rights. I am Khadija Usher, and our guest tonight is attorney Natalia Bevans, and we are discussing domestic violence and why it is important to be aware of what preventative measures are in place to help and protect victims. So, Ms. Natalia, I have to say, today I spoke to 2 women at the Women's and Family Support Department, and they genuinely inspired me. They were very committed to their work. I can tell that from how well they knew their information. But they also shared with me some troubling realities, which is simply that at the end of the day, it is the victim who has to make the decision to step out. And there are so many reasons why the victim would choose not to leave. Her partner might be her economic support at the end of the day. Her children, she's thinking about her kids. Maybe they think, you know what, I had to go out and make claims against this man, and this that want popular money in the neighborhood. Everybody know he as the good guy, as a nice guy. There are so many reasons to be afraid to come out. So what is your advice for victims? How do we make it that we take more people from victims into surviving?
It is not every woman that you encounter that we will classify as being strong to leave a relationship. When you are looking at abuse, it comes from it's a psychological abuse. They play on the mind. Men will tell women, if you leave, nobody will take you. If you leave, nobody will believe you because I'm this good guy. And women will think twice before they really rush and make that decision to leave. It is not an easy decision to leave. It is not. And for a woman to make up her mind to leave, it means she has to think about her children. She has to think about leaving a home where she and her children are comfortable. If he is the breadwinner, how is she going to maintain herself? The school for the children, the school books, the uniform, all these different factors she takes into consideration. You look at the status quo. Statistics have shown that a lot of middle-class women, because of the status quo, they want to maintain this status quo that all is well in the relationship, and they choose to leave. They choose to leave out of shame. They choose to leave, unless you have to reach that tolerance level. You have to reach that point of no return where you say enough is enough. Not every woman are strong enough to reach that tolerance level and say enough is enough. Not many are brave. And for me, it took a friend to say to me, you need to do what you have to do. Sometimes if you are so afraid, you are so scared, you are so intimidated that you choose the status quo rather than the decision to leave. It takes just that one friend that says enough is enough. And I want to say to women out there, if you are experiencing domestic violence, if you have a friend that is experiencing domestic violence, talk to her, call her one side and be her support, be her victim advocate. Be there for her. It's just, you just need to say, I am there for you. Sometimes that is all you need. Sometimes you just need to say, be brave. I will be by your side no matter what. I believe you. Because a lot of women think that because I've been in it for so long, the day I decide to come out after 10 years, after 15 years, 3 years, whatever, the day I come out, they're not going to believe me because they're going to say to me, why so long? And they will judge me. Yeah. Don't be afraid of being judged. This is the time for you to be brave enough and say, enough is enough. And I'm not saying that to break up families, because that is not my intention. Okay. As a magistrate, as an advocate for family, I'm not here to break up families, but I'm here to say, you need to be brave and say, enough is enough. If that perpetrator needs help, he can get help. If you want the marriage to be saved, if you want the relationship to be saved, I'm not going to throw the baby with the bathwater. But I'm going to say to you, that person must stop. They must stop. Because it is having, domestic violence have an adverse effect on children. Female children who witness domestic violence usually become victims themselves because it's an accepted norm, it's an accepted behavior. The boy children who experience their fathers abusing their mother become perpetrators themselves. And it's an endless cycle that will never be combated if we don't deal with it. We talk about domestic violence and we're not getting our men involved, we're not getting children involved. And it's just, we're not targeting the problem from a strategic point.
Okay, okay.
And coming back to women needing help, help is out there. You just need to be brave enough to find a support system, to find a support person who will support you in making that decision to leave or to get out of that chronic abuse or that cycle, that endless cycle. Help is there.
You really touched me, Ms. Natalia. And I remember after the 20,000 strong march, I was listening to a speaker on Facebook, and this person said, you know what, it's easy for us to not be in a crowd and people who have the same beliefs as you, but no, go out in the community and assert yourself in the face of the adversity and speak up.
Right.
So it's so serious. Is there any final words you want to leave, especially at this time with victims?
I would like to say to any person who currently going through any form of abuse, whether it just started or it's chronic, existing for a long period of time, I want you to break the silence. Don't be afraid of leaving. There is a mighty God out there. If you trust God to get you through this, He will get you through this. Don't be afraid. Help is out there. Help is out there. Find a friend, find a loved one, find a neighbor. Like you said, if the person is hearing something, if you're a neighbor hearing the screams, if you're hearing the cry, go out. Call the police. Their 800 number, they don't have to know that you are the person who is calling. But break the silence. Please break the silence. Don't be afraid. You don't have to go through this. We did not come into this world to suffer. Break the silence.
Break the silence. But unfortunately, we have done our part. We've brought the awareness, but we've come to the end of the show for tonight. So thank you, Ms. Natalia, for joining us and providing important information on tonight's topic. Next week, we will be joined by Attorney Magali Perdomo, who will be discussing your rights on the topic of extradition. Tonight's episode of Know Your Rights repeats at 1 p.m. on Sunday on Channel 7, and it will also be available for your viewing on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you for watching, and good night.